All right, we're on to day 3 of Advent of Code, rucksack reorganization. The basics of this problem are that you have these strings that represent items or something like that in your rucksack, and you want to divide them in half and find the common character between the two halves. And then you're going to map that to a priority, which we see down here. Lowercase items A through Z have priorities 1 through 26, and uppercase items have 27 through 52, and it wants us to get the sum of the priorities of those items. So let's hop into the code. Going to get through this real quick. This is my input that I got from my problem, but let's go ahead and get rid of that sidebar there and get to the code. All right, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to import the read file function from the FS library, and I'm going to define a function called part1, and we'll do all the code for part 1 in here. All right, so now we want to call that function read file on our input text, and we've got a callback function as the third argument, and we're going to write some code within there. If there's an error reading the file, we're going to throw an error, but hopefully that does not happen. Otherwise, we're going to continue with our code. First thing we want to do is we want to split the data by the new line character to get array of lines. So that's just going to give us an array for each string here. And then we're going to set a tracker variable to start the sum of priorities equal to 0. We're going to update this as we go throughout the code. Now we're going to loop through each line in lines, and we're going to do, some operations on each string that we encounter. And these are the operations that we want to do. So first we want to split each rucksack into first and second compartments, basically splitting that string in half. Then we're going to want to find the shared character between the compartments, so looking for matches there. Then we'll get the priority of the shared character, and then we'll add that priority to the sum of priorities, and we'll log that at the end. All right, so to split each rucksack into first and second compartments, we can define a function called getFirstHalf. This is going to take a string that takes a string rucksack, so it's going to take the whole thing here, and it's going to return a string. And to get the first half of characters, all we got to do is call rucksack.slice, and we're going to slice from 0 to rucksack.length divided by 2, so right to the middle there. And we can do the second thing for half. I misspelled and put a D instead of an F, but that's okay. We're going to keep going. Same thing there, but now we're going to go from rucksack.length divided by 2, and if there's no second parameter, then it just goes to the end of the string. So back up here, we're going to declare a variable called first compartment and set that equal to the return value of this getFirstHalf, and we'll do the same thing with a variable called second compartment. Now we want to find that shared character. We're going to find a function called findMatch that takes both the first compartment and second compartment. Down here, I've got a function findMatch. It takes two parameters, first compartment and second compartment, as we defined above, and returns a string. Okay, and within this, we want to compare the first compartment to the second compartment. We want to return the character that they have in common, and if there's no match, we'll return no match. Luckily, the designer of Advent of Code is very good and makes sure that there's always a match. So for this variable character to check of first compartment, we're going to say if second compartment includes this character to check, then we will return that character to check. Otherwise, it's going to keep going through the loop until it finds that. But when it finds it, it returns and it'll exit out of the loop and be done. If it goes all the way through the loop, then we'll reach this code return no match. But we should not expect to ever receive that with this problem. So we've defined this find match, which is great. Next, we're going to get the priority. We're going to define a function called lookupPriority, and that will pass in this character, which we're going to use shared character from that. So we can define that down here. Got our function lookupPriority. Takes one parameter, we'll call it char, type string, and it's going to return a number. And so the way this works is we return the priority of a character, which is determined by the order of alphabet. So we already went over this. I'm not going to belabor the point. So easy way to do this, you could use ASCII character numbers, but I'm just going to throw it into an alphabet string here, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then we have the capitals here. And we'll say if it includes the character, then we'll get the index of that character in alphabet, and we'll add 1 because this is going to start from 0, but as we saw in the problem, lowercase a is should be return a priority of 1. So otherwise, we're going to return 0, but again, we do expect to find a character within all these characters. And we will add that priority to our sum of priorities. Now we're going to console log sum of priorities so that we can get the answer and put it into the website there. And we'll call that part1 function. So if I save and I open up a terminal and I run this file, Then we see sum of priorities is 7,848. And if we go back here, then we see that that was the right answer. So moving on to part 2, the item type gets carried by 3 elves now, and we're not splitting the rucksacks in 2. We have to, each line is its own rucksack, and we have to find the common character between all 3 of those. That's the big one, and then they want us to return the sum of priorities of that item type. And so let's get into that code. It's going to be pretty similar to what we did in part 1, but we'll go ahead and define, where am I here? Yeah, we'll go ahead and define our function part 2. We're going to read the file again. We don't have to do this, but since I'm in part 2, different function, I'm just going to do it this way now. If there's an error, we'll throw that error. Otherwise, we're going to do what we did before, split the lines. All this is the same, but this is going to be a little different now. Instead of going through each line, we're going to initiate a for loop here, and we're going to start from index of 2 and go to less than lines.length. And each iteration of this loop, we're going to increment I by 3. And you'll see, so we want to get every 3 lines, right? Because we're comparing those 3 sacks. So the first line is lines of I minus 2, second line is I minus 1, and third line is lines of I. And now we need to find the match between all 3 of those rucksacks. So if we declare a function called find match 3, then that takes 3 parameters, the first sack, the second sack, and the third sack. Again, we got all those up here. It's going to return a string, and we'll define our function logic inside here. So first we'll compare the first compartment and the second compartment. This is just comments that I had, I think, when I copied over the find match from above. So obviously we need to compare the third compartment as well. But we will loop through all the characters in the first sack, and then we'll check if the second sack includes that character to check and the third sack includes it. Then we'll return character to check. That's the only condition that we have there. Otherwise, we'll return no match. But again, we don't expect this to ever actually occur. And so to find that match, we'll store it in this variable match character. Now we're going to declare a priority, and we'll look at priority of match character. This is just going to reuse the function that we defined above. So that's great. We can reuse our code, and we will add it to sum of priorities. We will log that sum of priorities. And finally, we have to call the function. And if I go ahead and I'm going to comment out part 1. And I'll bring up the terminal, and we'll run the code again. Oops. Then we see we get a sum of priorities of 2,616. And if we go back to our web browser, we see I submitted 2,616 and got the right answer. We got 2 more gold stars, and we're looking forward to day 4. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. All right, bye.
Yeah.